I'm here with Gareth Morrell, who has launched a project in England called Veterans at Ease. And we wanted to ask Gareth about the project, what made him decide to start this organization, and how it's progressing since he founded it.
Well, thank you, Maria, firstly for agreeing to this interview. It's lovely to be here in San Francisco. The reason why I'm here is to carry out research using the therapy that I'm now trained in to help veterans and their families deal with post-traumatic stress disorder. How I got into it was I served for 10 years in a British infantry unit and unknowingly got PTSD, and it finally came to a head 14 years after I'd left the armed forces.
You did some research into post-traumatic stress.
I had to when I was looking into setting up the charity back home. So obviously the signs and symptoms, there's quite a lot and they're varied, and you don't always get all of the signs and symptoms, and you don't always get them all at the same time. Mine spread out over 14 years, which is why I didn't recognise it. And I was in denial as well. I convinced my doctor when everything came to a head that none of it was related to my military service.
You were fortunate enough to be the recipient of the Winston Churchill Memorial Award Fellowship.
The Winston Churchill Memorial Trust has very, very kindly given me the funding to come out here and research neurolinguistic programming with war veterans and meet other specialists, because PTSD isn't the only issue that we face when I'm working with a veteran or a beneficiary. There are other injuries that are coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan that we need to address. So I've been talking to other specialists. So the Winston Churchill Memorial Trust is an amazing organisation. It's available to anybody living in the UK, and I believe Canada and Australia as well, whereby you need to be over 18, have a project in mind whereby you have to travel to research information, and then that is taken back to the UK to help other communities. From a national perspective, looking at some research that we did when we were putting together the big funding bid I mentioned earlier, we have actually saved the taxpayer in the first year alone just short of £100,000, and that's with the 30 veterans we've worked with so far. Our aim is to work with 400 over the next 4 years, so that figure equates to just over £2.2 million. So you can see that what we do is incredible value for money, doesn't re-traumatise the veterans, and helps them gain full-time employment as well, because many of them, as I mentioned, aren't able to hold down a full-time job. Of those 30 that I talked about, 9 were unemployed. By the time they finished their therapy, all of them had a full-time job. So what we do really works and is incredibly cost effective, as opposed to being put on meds for years and years and years.
Do you do any fundraising? Do you have access to public funds?
We're maximising our funding streams as much as we possibly can at the moment. The veterans themselves, we call them beneficiaries rather than patients and clients. The beneficiaries, they'll go out and do fundraising events. We do our own fundraising events. We have an annual golf tournament that one of the veterans set up. It was so successful the first year, he carries on and does it. And we've had some very high profile people on there. Back in the UK, these names are probably more recognisable. There was a guy called Roger Utley who was awarded the OBE. He played for the English Lions team back in the 70s, very famous back in the 70s. So
you have celebrities involved?
Kind of.
Well, it's always got
kind of. They're more figureheads, and it's nice to have them say they support us. That's really good.
Where do you go from here after this very interesting journey in the US and Canada? You go back to England, and how do you proceed?
The plan for me is to, once I get back to the UK, is to look at what I've learned. It'll take a couple of weeks to figure out the major lessons, and I'll continue to learn as I go along. But the idea is to go back. I need to have a meeting with my trustees to tell them what I've learned and some of the things that we really need to start looking at as further projects in relation to helping the wider veteran community. Then there will be managing the big lottery fund that we put in for a few months back. When we get that hopefully we should find out in August, but until September, October, I still need to try and find some way of rubbing two pennies together, as it were. So they'll be managing that and then thinking about and implementing a new project to bring in what I want to do as a peer support group, a family peer support group. Mm-hmm. So training up the wives that we work with, and we've worked successfully with 6 wives who have walked through our door. Mm-hmm. Get these guys trained up and have them set up their own peer support group in the areas that they live in so that they can help other families as well. What will happen is I can see me having to come back to continue to build the bridges and make new bridges with other organisations, but also to share what I've learned as well. So not just in the UK veterans and the families can be helped, but worldwide. And we'll start with America and Canada and Britain working together to do this and build up that special relationship from that side of the point of view of war.
Well, it's a fascinating project, Gareth, and thank you so much for sitting here to talk to us on a beautiful San Francisco day when you could be out doing all kinds of wonderful things. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Maria. Thank you.